In the ancient mystery schools, the number 7 was the metaphysical number of embodiment. So you get the 7 heavens, the 7 notes in an octave, the 7 virtues, 7 vices, the 7 planets, and the 7 liberal arts. The liberal arts are a foundational education for most elites, but particularly for magicians who use those ideas to then extrapolate and decode the ideas that are contained mystically in the secrets of the 7 planets. My name is Ryan Seven, and welcome to The Secret Science. So the 7 liberal arts. What's meant by liberal? Well, it's liberty, freedom, which actually comes from the root word for book in Latin, liber, meaning knowledge, book learning, because knowledge sets you free. The 7 arts are actually separated into 2 sections, the trivium and the quadrivium. The trivium, meaning the 3 ways, the 3 paths, is actually like a logic processing unit which consists of grammar, logic and rhetoric, or knowledge, understanding and wisdom. Whereas the quadrivium is maths, geometry, music and astronomy. These last 4 are learned after you've learned the first 3, but then the first 3 help you to process the last 4, and these things keep feeding back into each other until you get yourself a bloody good education, classic style. So with these things said, let's now get a really good look at what exactly the trivium is and why it was so useful then as it is now. This is the secret science, and so to keep away the unworthy, there are many riddles, wrong turns and red herrings employed. But for those of us that actually are stupid enough to carry on down this path, or possibly be worthy of it, that we need something to parse this information as well. So for that we have the trivium, meaning the 3 paths, which is grammar, logic, rhetoric, knowledge, understanding and wisdom, or to put it simply, input, process and output. If you put any of these 3 things in a different order, then you get things like ideological thinking. For example, all women are crazy. Let's start off with that wisdom. Wisdom would normally come at the end. All women are completely nuts. Now, if you start with that, then any knowledge that you collect will be there to reinforce that initial wrong idea. And so then all information can be manipulated by this if somebody wants to use that method. However, for those of us sensible enough, we take this information and lay it all out, a lot like a Lego instruction manual, whereby you get all the different pieces laid out. Is it a pair of legs? Is it a little nubbin with a dew jar on the top? We've got 2 of those, and we've got 1 green one and 1 blue one. You know, is it one of those long 4 ones with 4 little nups on the top that's yellow? We get all these things out and then we label them so everybody knows what everything is and what everything means. Then we need to be able to take this information and put it all together. So if it was the instruction manual, we start off in that first section with all the parts laid out, and then we start putting them all together. In the real world, we need something to be able to distinguish the right parts from the wrong parts. Is it actually from Lego, or is it a piece of Duplo, or is it a piece of a Ghostbusters action figure that somehow stayed in there since 1984? So we have something called the logical fallacies, which is a list of logical fallacies, those times that an assumed logic is actually incorrect. There's one called the ad hominem attack, whereby somebody is stood there and they're telling you all this information, and then the person next to you says, don't listen to him, he's a wanker. Not that masturbation makes you wrong, but that this person next to me doesn't know what they're talking about either. They're just saying that because this isn't a nice person, then everything that's saying is incorrect, which is a silly thing to say. So first of all, we extract everything that is illogical as part of this process. And then, just like with the instruction manual, Once we've moved on from that initial part that labels all the parts, we need to be able to put them together. Now, we won't necessarily know what it's going to look like in the end, but we see that this part goes with that part, this part intersects with this, and those two parts go together. And eventually we start to build something up. We build a clear picture of the information that we have that makes sense. And then when we've put all that together, quite by the order of the universe, we have something at the end of it. In this case, I'm making a fantastic spaceship. Do you think it looks cool? And so we have grammar, logic, rhetoric, input, process, output, knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. And these are the foundational parts of the trivium, which will then allow you to explore the quadrivium, which is an expansion of the foundational knowledge of the magicians. Let's take a look at that. So there are 7 liberal arts. The first 3 were the trivium of logic, grammar, and rhetoric. Then the next 4 are the things that logic, grammar, and rhetoric are going to understand, which are maths or arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. Each one of these is a layer up to the next. As in modern physics, that first layer, the maths, we know that that's kind of the metaphysic of the universe, that is the base layer upon which all else builds. That second layer, especially geometry, which was seen as the maths in action, as it were, whereby those simplest of shapes, triangles, circles, and squares, were the founding geometry of the universe, which then builds up into the more solid solids, the 3D solids, the Platonic solids. These are then a architecture of the universe, one layer up from those foundational pieces. This in motion was then the musical arts, which absolutely reflect the same mathematics within that geometry, but now put into motion with an energy behind them. This energy then cascades out to the 4th thing, which is the greater the universe of astronomy, whereby the planets were seen to be in harmony with each other, as all things are in this world. And then we have the music of the spheres. Each iteration, each size is a harmonic value. So this is the quadrivium. And by these 4 arts, learned people became learned and set themselves up to be able to comprehend and understand the rest of the secrets which were told to only a very few. So we've kind of got our head around those 7 liberal arts. And as I said, these things level up. They level up to unlock the secrets of the 7 planets. However, before we get there, we've got another level to get to. These things are in octaves. So the second octave, the second 7, is the trinity and quaternity, quaternary of the 7 liberal arts, flipped around and kind of broadened out. This is best exemplified by the trivium, which is transformed into a kind of sacred holy trinity. I think these are best exemplified by the cardinal, fixed, and mutable of astrology. Cardinal is a hinge and means to open, like a door. Fixed is literally a fixing, a actual embodiment of, and then mutable is like a transformation or a death into something. This is like the Father, the wife, and the Son of most holy trinities. Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu are the sulfur, salt, and mercury of alchemy. So these are these kind of modalities, the way that the universe behaves, and they're actually evident in every single action that the universe undertakes, that you undertake. Not that I undertake, though. There's no cause and effect with what I do. So this is like saying the cardinal, the opening energy of it, the thing that needs to get it going up in the morning is the symbol of the ram in astrology, and that is the animal that literally loves to climb, it loves to get up, it loves to go, it loves to headbutt things. Then you've got this fixed sign, the earthly sign. The first sign was fire. Now we've got Taurus, which is the fixed sign, and that actually is a very stubborn animal, stays where it is, very earthly, very earthbound, salt of the earth. Then we have mutable, Gemini, my sign, which is very transforming, very takes things in, puts things out, very changeable, always in one form and then in another, a lot like dying and resurrecting all the time. So if this was an actual thing in nature, it would be something like a flame. The cardinal, the opening energy of the flame would be the initial spark. The fixed of a flame would be the actual fire, the fuel itself burning. And then the mutable part of the fire would be when it's turning into embers and when it's actually transformed that fuel into something else. And so this is that trinity. We can go much deeper than that, but it's only a shortish video. You can explore these things on your own, or maybe I'll explore them further in a later video, but not yet. So we've got that trinity, and we also have this quaternity of the four elements. The four elements being essentially categories of information. Fire is energy, essentially. Water is a body or a volume of something, a cup or container, like a mind or your soul, or a cup. For fire, that's actually symbolized by a rod or a wand or a living branch with a leaf on the end, or a dead branch on fire, to symbolize the energy and the force it takes to get things done. Water's the cup, it's calm, it takes in, it embodies things. So the air is actually a mix of those first two elements. When the fire and the water come together, to the classicists, they made like steam or the air, which is volatile, like the intellect, like a thought. And so this was actually seen and symbolized as the mind and the powers of the intellect, which were like a sword, which cut things up into two, which is essentially dualism, which is essentially the powers of the mind. This is long and complex. I'm just trying to give you a brief overview. So after that, we have the earth, symbolized by coins, as the earth was the results of all the powers that came before it, the fire, the water and the air, resulting in earth. And a coin is much like all the energies put into it, and then we do a little intellectual thing that says, yes, we will exchange this in exchange for labor. So then we have these four elements in a basic sense. How would you see the four elements? So we're camping again. The four elements, well, the fire of it would be the fire, the water of that fire would be the chemicals in there that are actually combusting. The air of that fire would be the air itself blowing into it to allow it to actually combust properly, as is the person actually blowing it or making sure that the fire keeps going. And the earth of it would be the result at the end, the ash, the crap, the fact that all the potassium and whatnot is returned to the earth. And so there we have it. We have this further seven. And what is this further seven actually really teaching you? Well, it's how to comprehend symbols. And what we've actually done by expanding that first seven into a second seven is show how those ideas, which are the basic containers of those seven, which are seven numbers, which are seven principles, that that trinity of the trivium, the knowledge, understanding and wisdom, is actually very similar to the cardinal, fixed and mutable, or the thesis, antithesis, synthesis of philosophy, which essentially means you've got the thing that you want to know about, you put the opposite near it, you put them together, and what doesn't obliterate pops out at the end. This is this idea of this Holy Trinity, which is a father, a mother, they get together and they have a little baby, which is the third thing. So there we have it. The second layer, the second octave of this understanding. And now we get to decode exactly what these magicians were talking about with the mystery of the 7 planets. So I hope we breezed through those things quickly enough to not get too bogged down in them, as the entire point in this video is to get to those 7 secrets of the 7 planets. These were actually 7 rungs of a ladder, 7 spheres of influence, 7 fiery sephirot on the tree of life. These were like advancing seals, really, of consciousness, increasing those vibrations, compressing those vibrations down until we plop out in the 8th sphere of the earth, where we are, reality. So it could be seen as a concept or something that happens in the universe coming down from the source, and it trickles down, comes down through these spheres, becomes concrete at the bottom. Equally, to the shaman and magician, it's a way of climbing these 7 rungs of the ladder back up to source. So the first layer is the moon, the sphere of the moon, which has a cycle of a month, and being the fastest was the closest. And what the moon is it's the idea of cycle and the root of where cycles come from. The universe has innate processes. The tides are a result of the moon is a result of matter forming and gravity and all these things, all these unconscious processes, somewhat in the actual DNA, as it were, in the actual construction of the geometry of the initial elemental particles that make up everything. So the sphere of the moon is the sphere of the unconscious processes. So what the ancients realized is that although we're going this way, we're going back up the ladder, actually most things come downwards. And those unconscious processes are the last place before realization, in that, you know, your body does things and you might be unconscious of it until you cast your consciousness onto it and register it. So then we go to the next sphere, which is the sphere of Mercury, which has an orbit of 88 days. And Mercury, being the closest to the sun being the source of energy, and the god, as it were. Mercury was seen as the messenger, as it was very close to the sun and, you know, had that communication. And what communication and translation essentially is, which were the functions of the planetary god of Mercury, is actually to construct things in order to translate. If you need to give an idea to somebody that can't speak in your tongue, you might write it down. I'll draw you out a structure. I'll draw you the map of where you want to go to, because you can't understand what the hell I'm saying to you, even if I do say it louder. So I draw out a map and I give it to you, and then you can understand by that translation. The map isn't reality, it's a translation of what's real to his brain. Okay, so then we go to the sphere of Venus, which is actually about the animal self, the material need for things, the need for fulfillment, the need for entertainment, the need for food, the need for sex, the need to drink, the need to breathe, the need to be free. It's all these outside coming in ideas and an interaction in a very personal way, in a very animalistic way. An interaction with other people and interaction with reality. So then, a layer up from that, we have the sun, which was seen as a masculine force that not only pulsed out its energy to feed the rest of the planets. In fact, the rest of the planets are essentially aspects of the sun. It sent out its energy to the planets, but also received it back again, integrated it, and divvied it out as it seemed necessary. So then, after the sphere of the sun, we have the sphere of Mars, who is seen as the warrior and passion and those things that drive you and those things that make you angry and frustrated, and it's the frustration of sex, often like it's labeled the sexual force, which is one of the deeper secrets in these mystery school traditions, which is the thing that makes you want to intercourse. It makes you want to intercourse that person. You might want to intercourse that art exhibition. You might want to intercourse that song. You might want to intercourse that burger. Intercourse. And so this is what Mars is about. Mars is about, going getting what you want. Just going getting what you want. And making sure that the right things happen. And saying no and saying yes. Jupiter, which is the next sphere up, is the sphere of kind of the creative force, the actual force itself, the ability to create things, the ability to expand, the fact that the universe is actually, tilted in favor of growth rather than death, that there's anything at all in the first place is an amazing thing. From Jupiter we get things like jovial and, other fun, japey words. Then we have Saturn, which as the furthest planet out, did the opposite to Jupiter, whereas Jupiter was all about building and constructing and the prime mover's first movements into reality, which could be seen as the ego in the self. Saturn was the antithesis of that and cut that off and is the end of things and is the limit, because it was the furthest planet out viewable to the naked eye. It took some 29 years, a third of a lifetime. So what happens is, with the idea that where these planets are stationed and their actual characteristics, how long they take to cycle, their distance and comparison to each other, this kind of semiotic code is actually the 7 principles of living, is the 7 principles of materiality. Alchemists using it in their 7 principles, from sublimation through to distillation, etc. They realized that just as with that Trinity, that's in that Holy Trinity, the cardinal, fixed and mutable, that get things going, there's processes that we can apply, that the universe applies, and that will actually achieve things. Because the whole point in magic, the whole point in alchemy is transformation. So these are the 7 secrets of transformation. They're the 7 categories of identity of everything within the universe. If you apply them correctly, then you can augment the universe at your will. We've had the primary 7 of the 7 liberal arts, which are the foundation. We've had the secondary 7, which is the extrapolation of those 7 as a way of codifying things and a philosophy thereby to decode them. The third level is the 7 planets as archetypal forces. And then a 4th level above that is the extrapolation of those forces into everything around you. So the magician or shaman climbs the rungs of the celestial ladder. Each one of the rungs of these planets represents a layer of consciousness to be stripped away by drum, by drug, by dance. So these layers are stripped away and the self becomes expanded to the point where there's no distinction between me and you and the rest of the universe. And by this, the shaman magician arrives at a place whereby information arrives into the consciousness and things somehow are just known. We can dispute this, whether or not it's actually happening, fine. But the reality of the situation is that many a discovery has been made under these states of mind and under the magical techniques. Remote viewing works. The CIA use it. There's enough evidence. I'm convinced. Mainstream science might not want to admit it because it doesn't pass with the material model. However, remote viewing works. These 7 planets, these 7 secrets, are a cosmology and equally a map, a methodology of how to navigate the layers of reality in a shamanistic, magical perspective. So I'm hoping to slowly bring into focus over this series of The Secret Science the entire body of this knowledge. However, it can only fit so much into a video, and I'm hoping you'll go away and do your own research, because just to comprehend how the ancients were thinking is a brain squeezer in itself. So here we've had the foundations, which were the 7 liberal arts, and then the 7 secrets of the 7 planets going up in the octave. Start with just a basic education. In the interim, we learned how to decode things, and then the actual secrets themselves, a way of looking at the universe through these cosmological spheres of influence. My name's Ryan Seven, and this has been The Secret Science.